So if you go to the Dropbox folder, you go to reviews, there is something called midterm review. These are like, you should read the slides and the book, right? But I went ahead and pulled out like everything that I thought was important from chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? That's just 49 things that I have in here. But some of them are like, study this, study that, okay? So I'm gonna take it from the top. I'm just gonna kind of read through them really quick. I don't plan to go into a lot of detail. Like, I'm not gonna reteach anything. Okay, so first thing I tell you is read and review all homework, lecture slides, and book material. Then I tell you that Java was created by Sun Microsystems in 1995, and it is currently owned by Oracle. I should put that in there. All right. Then I tell you that the Java programming language is a program made up of one or more classes, and a class contains one or more methods, and then a method contains programming statements. Okay, that's self-explanatory. I don't really plan to ask any questions on that. That's just a concept you need to understand, right? So when you're writing a program, the first thing you actually do is write a class, and then after you've written your class, you write methods, right? And then inside the methods, you have programming statements. Then you have to know the identifiers. Oh, dang, I'm messing with this. You're going to have to know identifiers, okay? So you're going to have several questions, not just one, but actually like several that are going to say, it's going to give you a list of identifiers, and I'm going to ask you which ones are valid. You're going to have to know the rules of identifier. Rules of identifier is that they can be composed of numbers, letters, underscore, $sign, but they cannot start with a number. They cannot be a reserved word. And Java is case sensitive, so total in all caps, total with just a capital T, and total all lowercase are considered to be all different identifiers. Okay, then I tell you that Java code is compiled into bytecode. Bytecode is what is read by the JRE. So whenever we write Java programs, we compile it. It compiles in some file format that is read and ran by the Java JRE. And then I tell you to know the definition of syntax. So syntax are the rules of a language define how we put together symbols, reserved words, and identifiers to make a valid program. Then I also ask you to know these three types of errors. Like, you will see these on your midterm. So we have compile, runtime, and logical. You need to know the difference between the two. A compile error is when you have an error in your syntax. A runtime error is when the program runs but crashes because of a mistake or something like that. Like, something came across a situation that it couldn't handle. And here they give you the example of dividing by 0. And then also logical error, which is the most common type of error, is when you have the program compiles and runs, but you have unexpected results, right? That, like, maybe your equation is wrong, right? Where you try to do the equation to convert Fahrenheit to Celsius, but you divided 5 by 9 as integers, so Java treated 5/9 as 0, so that when you put data into the actual program, the output is something unexpected or not correct. You need to know what a string literal is and what we use to identify a string literal. We use double quotes. Also, it's good to know, and I'm sure it's in here somewhere, is a char literal is identified by single quotes. Every string in Java is an object. So keep that in mind. They're all defined in the string class. And if you remember, we also invoked string methods on a string object. So there's methods associated with the string object. You need to know system.out represents the output console. And you should also know system.in represents the input console. Or not input console, the input, meaning the keyboard. A variable is a name for a location in memory where data is stored. A variable must be declared by specifying the variable's name, right, which is the identifier, and the type of information it will hold. So you need to know how to declare a variable. A variable can also hold a reference to an object. So that says it right here. Variable holds either a primitive data type or a reference to an object. A class name is used to declare the object reference variable, right? So whenever we declare an object reference variable, we use a class name to tell Java what type of data it's going to hold. So if I go over here to my dog test2, I said, here's my identifier that I'm declaring. I'm declaring it as an object reference variable that points to a dog object in memory. And then here is me telling Java, create a new dog object, use this constructor. All right, a class name. Okay, constant. You need to know how to, you know a bunch of different things about constant. So a constant is an identifier that is similar to a variable, except it holds the same value during its entire existence. We use the final modifier when we declare constant. And you should also know that it should be in all caps, right, by our convention. So you're going to have to know the coding standard. I don't think I put coding standard stuff in here, but if you violate the coding standard when you're writing your code, I'm going to take points off, right? You should know that constants are in all caps. You should know that classes start with the capital letter. You should know that variables start with the lowercase letters. Yeah. Things like that. All right. Then I tell you to know the 8 primitive data types. So I don't really grill you on knowing the max, the min and max values, but the things that you should know about the primitive data types is the type of data it holds, meaning the byte, the short, the int, and the long all represent integers, and you should know how many bits each one is. So byte is 8, short 16, int's 32, long is 64. Then we have the float and the double. You need to know that a float is 32 bits with 7 significant digits, and the double is 64 with 15 significant digits. You need to know that a char represents a single character, and that all our chars are from the Unicode character set, and they're delimited by a single quote. Know that a Boolean value represents true or false in Java. Right, there's only 2 states, true or false. You need to know about literals as well. So I'm going to go ahead and just read this. A literal is an explicit data value used in a program. A string literal is represented by wrapping a string in double quotes. A char literal is represented by wrapping a string with single quotes. Literals for numbers are performed differently. So int literals, by default, Java treats all explicit integers as int literals. So that means whenever you type an integer into Java, like we did here for the age of the dog, Java is going to treat this as an int. Right there. Right, it's treating it as an int. If I were to put a .0, Java is going to treat that as a double. If I were to put an F on that, it's going to treat it as a floating point value, a float. If I were to put an int with an F at the end, it would treat that as a float. If I would put an L at the end of this, which I don't like to do because it looks like a 1, so I'll use a capital L, Java's going to treat that as a long literal, okay? All that is specified in your book and also right here. You can kind of read through this. It gives you more explanation about all that. Here I talk about the Unicode character set. It's 16 bits per character. It allows up to 65,000 unique characters. That's where all our characters come from. You need to know all these assignments. I mean, I'm not going to ask you what do we use to subtract or what do we, but you need to know how to actually use them. Okay, so I'm going to quiz you on knowing things like the difference between pre-increment and post-increment and pre-decrement and post-decrement. There is a difference between the two, but you should know how all of those work, right, from just using and programming. But explicitly, I'm going to test you on the ones that most students just forget about, which is pre-increment, post-increment, and this remainder. You're going to see all that right there on your test. I'm not going to ask you what they are. I'm going to give you a code snippet and say, given the following code snippet, what value can you expect in the variable result? And then you have to follow a bunch of lines of code. And if you don't know about pre-increment, post-increment, and how remainder works, then you're going to come up with the wrong value. I give you a sample toward the bottom of this.
Sir?
Yes.
Did we ever use pre-increment, post-increment in this
We did, and I did demonstrate them.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't really use it in the homework assignments, right? So the most important thing to know is that here's really all you need to know about pre and post increment is that when you pre-increment something or pre-decrement something, the value takes place immediately. So as soon as you use that value in that line, it's the new value. When you post increment or post decrement, the change does not happen until the next line.
Okay.
Yes.
I have a question about the, you know how all the, what are they called, operations, and you know how there's equal sign attached to the second part? I know that's supposed to like assign the variable to the variable used or something.
Yeah.
Can you show us real quick what it does if we need to know it for that?
Yeah, so let me just hop over to my code and I'm gonna go ahead and just, what can I do? I'll just do it here really quick. I'll comment this out for now. So I'm gonna run my dog test too, but I'm gonna not actually instantiate a dog object in it. I'll come over here and I'm gonna define int num 4. Oops, I'm sorry. Int num is equal to 4. Okay, and then I'll say something like, I don't know, int num 2 is equal to num, let me see. I have no idea. I'm seeing divided by, let's do divided by 3, the remainder of it being divided by 3. Does anybody know what that is? Okay, 1, right? And so I'm going to say system, for now, we're going to take this in steps so we can see it happen in real time, like as we do everything. Okay, so I'm going to say num, actually, let me do this. I'm going to say what num equals, and then I'm going to say what num2 is equal to. Okay, hop over here. What the heck? Oh, I didn't concatenate correctly. Sorry. Somebody should have caught me. All right, and then I'm going to run this. Wait, dang it. Run that. And then you can see that num is 4 and num2 is 1. Okay, but what the assign equals actually does, it takes that value and assigns it to itself, like whatever it is. So if I say something like, okay, well, now I want num2 to be equal to whatever num4 is plus, or not num4, whatever num is plus num2. Okay? Now, I can write it like that, or I can take a shortcut. I'm going to go ahead and write it like that for now. You can write it like that, and then you'll get the result that you expect, which is basically 4 and 1 being summed together, and then you're assigning it back to num2. Or I can write it like this. Where I say num2 is plus equal to the value that you're assigning, right? So this is saying add this whatever's on this side of the equal sign to num2 and then assign the value to itself, right? So you're basically, right, like this and this are doing the exact same thing. Because you're basically assigning, you're taking whatever value num2 already had in it and then assigning that value plus num and then assigning it back into num2. So this will do the exact same thing. So when you were to, if you were to compile and run this again, right, you can see that when we summed 4 and 1, we got 5, but then we summed 5 and 4, and we got 9, right? And I basically just took a shortcut with it. So that's what that does. The plus equals, divide equals, remainder equals. That's what it does. Yes.
So like, you said int num2 equals 9 and then the percent sign 3. So if you just left it 3 and then you did num2 percent equals 9, it would be the same answer as before, and is that different?
Right. Yeah, so if you, hold on. If I were to just change this, right? This is what you're asking, right? If I were just to change that, it's going to be the exact same thing.
Yeah, but like when you said int num2 equals 9% of 3, so if you took off the
Oh, I see what you're saying. This would be, hold on, let me put this back so I don't, I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question. So because this doesn't actually have a value assigned to it yet, right? So if I were to do this, if I were to say, okay, well, I'll make num3 of 3 and then say num2 remainder equals num, then, wait, I get that backwards, didn't I? Because that's the same thing as saying this, oh no, I think that's right. Oh, let's see the result, because now I'm confused now. Okay, yeah, I did have it backwards because now you're, oh no, it's right. Wait, what was it before? It was 3, right? So this is actually saying, take this num and this is what this is saying right here. No, wait, what the heck? The other way. Now I'm confused.
It's, as you're saying, 3 divided by 4, so the remainder is 4, right?
Wait, 3 divided by 4, the remainder is 4. But then, like, so, okay, hold on, let's take it back to the way we had it. I'm super confused now. All right. This is what we had before, and here was my 4, and then I'm dividing it by 3, but I'm saving the remainder into num2. So whenever I divide num4 by 3, right, 3 goes into 4 one time with the remainder of 1, right? Okay, so then what I had before, or after this, is I assigned num2 a value of 3, and then I said, wait, let me keep going. Wait, dang it, what did I have before? I can't go back to it anymore. Okay. All right, I must have pressed something to where I can't go back to it. Okay, so now what I'm saying is I'm going to divide this by whatever I have over here and save the value back into num2. So if this actually went into it and I had a remainder, then it would be 3. Dang it. Okay, hold on. I'm so confused now. All right, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to hop over to, I forgot what order this happens in, but good thing you asked this because I just never tried this before. Let's go back to the lecture and look at chapter 2. So they have a table in there and it explains it, and when I look at it, I'll be able, okay, that's the order it goes in. I must have passed it. Oh, there it is. Okay, so here it is. So x divide 0. Okay, so the x is being divided by the 4. Okay, so I had in my mind, I was thinking of it the other way. I was thinking the y was being divided by the x. Okay, so looking at this, we're saying this is the same thing as saying num2 is equal to num2 divided by, or remainder divided by num. Okay, that makes more sense because here I have a 3, here I have a 4. 4 doesn't go into 3, so there's a remainder of 3. Right? Does that make sense? Like, I'm sorry I butchered that. In my mind, I was thinking of it backwards, but yeah, that's the explanation for it. So this here is the same thing as saying num2, and I messed up because I did addition, and when you do addition, it's like forgiving because it doesn't matter which order you do it in. So this is saying the same thing as num2 plus num, right? And I had it like the other way. That's why I got confused. Any questions on this? Sorry if I made this even more difficult. Yeah, all right. Okay, that was a good question though, about using these. Okay, then we talk about the widening, narrowing, assignment, promotion, and casting. I don't know if I ask any questions on this. No, actually, I think I do. Okay, so ask questions about widening conversions, narrowing conversions, like, you know, when and like how they can be done. Okay, like depending on the type of data, you can do like you can convert them based off of going from a higher data type to a lower data type, right? So if you're going to narrow, let me just read this. So narrowing conversions can lose information because they tend to go from a larger data type to a smaller one. So if you're going to narrow and you're trying to go from a double to a float, you're going to have to end up casting because you're going from a higher 64-bit to a lower 32-bit, right? So that's the type of things you need to know. You should know the definition of all these, but I believe I asked you a couple of questions from widening and narrowing. I have to look at the actual exam. Scanner object, I don't really ask you anything specific about the scanner object except for what package it's in, right? So here's the package it's in, but you should know how to use it because you're going to have to write a program on you actually using the scanner object. And I tell you to be familiar with some methods on it. The new operator is used to create an object. Creating an object is called instantiation, so you should know what instantiation means. Whenever we call a method, it's called invoking. We use the dot operator to invoke a method. You got to know what garbage collection is. Okay, so that's when Java periodically runs garbage collection to free up memory whenever it finds an object that doesn't have a valid reference. Okay, then I just tell you to review the string class. So that just means like the methods of the string class. I also talk about the random class. It's part of the java.util package. You should know how to use the random class as well. The math class, you should be familiar with the math methods that are in the book. It's in the java.language package. And then number format, decimal format, that's something we talked about as well, but really the only thing I'm going to ask you is what package is located in, which is the java.text package. Okay.
The math class?
No, that's the number format and decimal format.
Oh, okay.
So I also bring up the date and the calendar. We did talk about those. Those are in the java.util package. And then the simple date format class is in the java.text package. And then I also say this again, variable can hold a primitive data type or reference to an object. Let me delete that. Let me delete this as well. What the heck? Yeah, did I already? Hold on. It looks like these are repeating. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this. All right, so true object-oriented programming is based on defining classes that represent objects with well-defined characteristics and functionality. So here's where we start getting into chapter 4. A class contains data declarations and method declarations. Values of data define the state of the object created from the class, and the functionality of the methods define the behaviors of the object. All classes that represent objects should define a toString method, which should return a string that represents the object in some way. It is automatically called when the object is concatenated to the string or when the object is passed to the print line. A constructor is a special method that is used to set up an object when it is initially created. A constructor has the same name as the class. In encapsulation, the object's data is contained hidden in the object, and the access to the data is restricted and made available through public methods. Be familiar with what the private and the public visibility modifiers do, and then familiarize yourself with the anatomy of a method, meaning you should know data declarations, return types, and formal parameters. right? So if you hop over to the dog class, okay, so this is the visibly modifier of this method. This is the return type, which is void, and then this is the parameter list, right? Which holds the formal parameters. That's what it's talking about there. I'm not gonna really ask you questions on it. It's just something you need to know because you're gonna have to write a class on your test. And be familiar with overloading. That's actually more of a final question. Okay, let me get rid of that. You also need to understand coding statements and the values that are returned from operations, including data that is returned from objects methods. Okay, so meaning, like what I mean there is some students still have a difficult time knowing what's actually invoked or called. Like, so here's my dog object. If I were to call get name, then you need to understand, okay, well, that means that I'm referencing this get name method over here on this dog class, right? So you hop over here and you execute the statements in this method. And then when you're done, you're going to return back a string and you're going to hop back over to what you called the method. And this is a string, which is highlighted. And that's the reason why I can call char at 0 on that string, because there's a string for the dog's name, right? So you're invoking a method, you're getting data back. That data is a string, so you're invoking a method on that string. Right, any questions on that? Okay, so then here is kind of just some stuff that I tell you that you should probably know. I think probably the most important thing, like these problems right here is what separates like A students from people who aren't A students. Like most students who aren't A students just like guess at these or they just don't do them all together. Okay, so you can expect things that are just similarly as difficult on your midterm. So let's just kind of look at this really quick and think about what is going on. So let me try to zoom in. Control plus plus. Why is it not zooming in? What the heck? Controls. Okay. I guess Control plus plus isn't zoom anymore. No, I thought it was for everything. No.
It looked like it was trying to, Control plus plus was trying to visualize your exponent 2.
All right. Yeah. I didn't see that. Okay, so let's take a look at this really quick. Actually, hold on. I can do this really cool thing on my laptop that I saw the other day. I can click this, and then I can take a full screen snip. And then I can zoom in. Yeah, heck yeah. And then I can write. See? Cool, right? And then I can undo over here. Yes. Okay, so let's look at this code right here. Okay. So this is what you kind of expect. I'm not actually giving you a full program, but it's just programming statements. So I tell you, given the following code snippet, what value is stored in the variable result? There's variable result right there. Okay. It's an integer. Variables A, B, and C are also integers. So the first thing I tell you is, okay, well, A plus equals C. We just went over this and we're all, or at least I was super confused, right? So A plus equals C. So what is the value of A right now? Right, because A is 5, and then I plus equals to C. So what is it? It's 8, right? Okay, so what about A divided by B, but just the remainder of that? All right, so B is 2. So I'm basically asking, okay, divide this by 2, and 2 goes into 8 evenly. So A right here at this point is 0. And I actually tell you that right here, but that comment is not going to be on the midterm, obviously. Okay, so then I say result is equal to A minus minus plus B times C. So what is A minus minus?
3.
A is 0 on the line above it. What is A minus minus? Anybody know? It's A minus minus.
-1.
It's -1, but since it's a post decrement, it's actually 0 right here. It doesn't go -1 until after this line, right? You see that? Man, I really suck at doing like fine lines. I got to get better at that. All right, so A is -1, but not until the line is finished. That's what the post decrement and increment do, is it doesn't take effect until the following line. So if that's 0, then what is stored in result?
0.
Look at the whole thing, please. Right? B times C, which is 2 times 3. So really, result is just equal to B times C. So up here, you would write, the correct answer for this would be 6. Would it make sense?
Wait, so I got a question. And I probably was kind of zoned out when you explained it. How'd you get 0 on A real quick?
Because A is 0 right here on the line above it. And because A is doing a post decrement,
No, I get that part, but how did you get the 0? Or no, how'd you get the 8 divided by 2 is 0?
because this is remainder. This doesn't tell me the result of division. This tells me
How many times 2 goes into 8?
no. That's the regular division. This tells me what is the remainder after 2 goes into 8. Because 2 goes into 8 evenly, there's nothing left over. All right? Yeah. Okay, any questions on that before I slide down to the next one, which is equally as complicated? Yes.
And then
So we talked about the rules of dang it, hold on. Can I erase? No.
Post-decrement?
Yeah, so we have pre-increment and we have that's pre-decrement and post-decrement, right? The difference between those two lines is that when you do a pre, the value takes effect on that same line. When you do a post, Java's going to change that value, but for this line of code, it's going to use the previous value or whatever it was before it did that. So it was 0 before, so it stays 0 on that line. But once the line is complete, then A is going to equal -1. Does that make sense?
So if there was another...
That just means 0 is used in that place.
If there was another problem, then we would kind of incorporate that -1 into that X.
Yeah. Well, you know, let me just see if I could type up a simple program that demonstrates this really quick. So, all right, let's just forget everything that I wrote here. And I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to kind of copy the same thing what I just did. I'm going to say, okay, I have int A, but I'm going to say int A is 0. Okay, I'm going to say int B is 2. And int C is 3. And I have int result. Okay, then I'm going to say result is equal to B times C. So what is B times C? Anybody know?
6.
Okay, so just as a sanity check, I am going to print out the result. Okay, it's 6, right? Because I'm basically just multiplying. I'm saying B has B times C, right? And that's 6. But what if I said, okay, you know what? Go ahead and multiply those, but also add in A decremented. What do you think the result of that's going to be? 5?
I think it's still going to be, yeah, well, actually, post, so it's still going to be 6.
Right.
It's going to stay 6. 6, final answer.
But why is it going to stay 6?
Because post is the next line.
Exactly, right? So now when I compile and I run, it's still the same, but if I were to just print out what A is after, like here, I'll say A is, and then A. A is -1. To confuse students on midterms. That's exactly why I use this. No, actually,
Oh, no, not this, but like in real life.
no, but actually in real life, I just actually had to use one recently. Yeah, because I was iterating through a loop that had a particular value, and I did want to decrement it for the next iteration, but for that iteration, I wanted to keep the current value, right? So like,
Post in the first one, and then, but you wanted to change it for the second one, so then you did.
exactly, yeah, but I wanted to keep the value at that iteration.
So what do you do on that second one?
Then it changes.
It keeps going down.
If you need to-
So what do you think would happen if I were to do the pre-increment or decrement?
5, final answer.
All right, compile, run, and it is 5, right? So that's the difference between the two, is one takes place at that line before it's used, and the other one takes place after the line is complete.
So then the plus plus is the same thing, but.
Exactly, yeah. All right, yeah. Where was I? I click on that. Okay, cool. All right, so let's look at this next one, which is, I don't know, I think this is fun. This is my favorite one. Like, I keep this, like, I have a picture of this, like, on my wall in my apartment, and, yeah,
A picture of this exact thing we're looking at?
exactly.
Oh, nice.
Okay, so how do I even start this? Anybody even know how to start this? I'm saying num1 is 25, num2 is 4, and then I'm giving you all this mess right here. This is, you could expect like this on a question very similar to this on your midterm. This means that you're going to have to know what each one of the methods of the math class actually does. Not every one of them, but at least the ones from your book. Okay, so how do I start this?
You guys start with the parentheses first.
Okay, so which one's my innermost parentheses? Anybody know?
Random.
Okay, random, right? So math random. So what is the value of math random?
Plus number
Is it a random number? It's not a random number.
25.
No. No, I say that for your chapter 3 homework, but you should still know what math random actually does. So what does math random actually do? What does it give me?
It gives you a random number.
But what random number? What range?
Oh, 4 to 25, sir.
No, it's not an integer. No, it's a double. It's 0 through 0.9999. It's 15 significant digits. You keep going on forever, but it's basically not 1. It's 0 through any fractional result less than 1. Does that make sense? Okay, perfect. Okay, so what does math floor do? That's the next thing to do. What's math floor do? Okay, exactly, right? So math floor is going to take whatever random result we got from math random and make it 0. Does everybody agree with that? Okay, that's exactly what it does. What's the square root of 0? Anybody know? Exactly. So, exactly. You can expect a lot of questions like that. So, I take this back. Dang it, I kind of messed up. Because it's a double, it's not really 0. It's 0.0. This is 0.0. So then what does what does me casting 0 to an int do? It gets rid of that 0.0, so now it's just 0.
It overtakes the double.
No, it just forces that double 0 to an int 0. That's an int 0. So well, now I have 0 plus 1, or not plus 1, plus num1. What is num1? 4?
It's 8. Answer's 8.
Oh, 20. Oh, 25. You guys are confusing me. All right, so it's 25 over here, and now I'm dividing 25 by.
Wait, how do you do 25? Oh, I thought that was okay. I thought it was 5. My bad.
So what am I dividing 25 by?
5.
All right, exactly, because of it's 4 right here, but I'm pre-incrementing it, so 25 divided by 5. What is 25 divided by 5?
It's 5.
All right, so the answer to that is 5. See how fun that was? You can impress people at the bar or wherever it is that you hang out. I do it all the time, so
Wait, so you got a picture of that at your place?
I do. Yeah, I carry one in my wallet too. What's that? I mean, not everybody, but just yeah. Just a few people, I guess. But I have to pay them most of the time, though. So, all right, any questions before I move on? See how fun that was? You can expect a bunch of questions like that. Not a bunch, but at least 20 points worth of questions like that on the midterm. So, there's going to at least be like 4 or 5 of them. I can't remember exactly. All All right, so the last thing I tell you to do is, this is a midterm, so there's going to be a few programming problems. Yeah. So this is what you should know how to do. So 42 tells you write a program on paper without any assistance of the book or computer, because it's going to be it's not going to be open book or open notes or open computer. I'll be grading every little detail, capitalization of keywords, the proper use of identifiers, class name matches the file name. Like basically just pretend like you're typing out code. All the times that you've done it before, if you didn't copy and paste somebody else's code, it should permanently be embedded in your mind, because I've given you enough programs to where it should be permanently embedded into your mind, right? Okay, just throwing that out there. And I tell you to, let's see. So these are just programs that you should be able to do without any assistance of using a book. Write a Java program that prints a string literal to the console. That's like a Hello World program. Write a Java program that prompts the user for two numbers and calculates the sum and the average of the two numbers, displays the result back to the user. Write a Java program that prompts the user for two numbers, then uses the math class to perform calculations and displays the result back to the user. Write a Java program that prompts the user for his first last name, uses string methods and the random class to generate a username and displays the result back to the user. We've done that on a quiz and also on your homework. So it seems like maybe it's something important that you need to know how to do, right? It might show up again on the midterm and the final, and then like after the class is over, I'll probably surprise you at work and ask you there too. So be prepared for that. Okay, then I tell you, so I like to flip-flop between different classes, because I kind of feel once you know how to write a class, you should be able to write a class for anything, right? Not just for a dog or a student, because I don't want you to just to sit there and try to memorize something. I want you to truly understand, okay, how do I create a class that is going to be a blueprint for an object? So if I tell you, these are your instructions, you should be able to just take this and run with it. So I tell you to write a class for a dog object. The object should have private data for the dog's name, the dog's breed, the dog's age. The constructor for the dog object takes two string parameters to set the name and the breed on instantiation, and an integer for the dog's age. So I'm telling you exactly like how to create the constructor. Also, the dog class should have public getters and setter functions for the name, the breed, and the age, and have a public two-string method that returns a string representing the object. Create another service method that calculates the dog's age in dog years by multiplying the dog's age by 7. I mean, that's pretty simple. I mean, really, I don't think I give you what you should name it. So if I think you're free to name it whatever you want. But if you were to do that, make a method that gives the dog's age back in dog years, it would look something like this: public int age in dog years. Exactly like that. You don't have instance data for it up here because you already have an age, and all you're doing is just taking the dog's age and multiplying it by 7, right? That's the age in dog years. As they say, like if a dog is 1 year old, he's really 7 years old, or 2 years old, he's really 14. So it's really all you have to do. I mean, it's not that difficult. Take the age, multiply it by 7, spit it out.
And you'll tell us when you don't want us to use numbers, when you want us to use like instant data to represent numbers.
On my
Yeah, literals.
literal values. So on the midterm, like unless I tell you explicitly to do it, you don't have to do it. Some students just do it just out of habit. I'm not going to take points off or give extra points if you do or you don't. Okay. And then I tell you to write a class, a driver class that instantiates the dog object and uses the dog object methods to set the name, the breed, and the age. But the one that I ask is like, I wish it was that simple, but it's not. Right? I'm going to tell you, write a program that prompts the user for, if I give you the dog, the driver for that is going to be write a class that prompts the user for a dog's name, age, and breed, and instantiates a dog object. Then prompt the user for like an updated name, right? Like if you just say you want to update the name and then change the name of the dog. So you're gonna have to like call the setter to change the name of the dog. But you should know how to use getters and setters.